Mary Shelley and Guillermo del Toro created monsters out of loneliness. Shelley dreamed hers up during a storm that wouldn't end, surrounded by chaos and death, while del Toro has spent decades turning his fascination with misunderstood creatures into art. Both of them looked at the line between life and death and thought, what if we crossed it? Del Toro's 2025 Frankenstein isn't just a horror movie, it's a love letter to the original story that started it all. It's a gothic, heart-wrenching retelling that captures not only the terror of playing divine, but also the deep, aching humanity of the creature itself. Before diving into del Toro's vision, it's worth revisiting how Mary Shelley's own life and the stormy summer in 1816 gave birth to the most influential horror story ever written. The story begins in 1816, during what was known as the Year Without a Summer. Mount Tambora had erupted in Indonesia the previous year, throwing so much ash into the atmosphere that Europe was cloaked in gloomy weather for months. Thunder rolled across Lake Geneva, where a group of friends, Mary Godwin, later Mary Shelley, her lover Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, John Polidori, and Mary's stepsister Claire Clairmont, were up at a villa called Diodati. They were restless, bored and trapped indoors. Byron, always the provocateur, proposed a challenge. Everyone should write a ghost story. Polidori's entry, The Vampire, became the first published vampire story. Mary, however, couldn't think of anything. Then, one sleepless night, lightning flashing outside, she had a waking dream. I saw the hideous phantasm of a man stretched out, and then, on the working of some powerful engine, show signs of life. That vision became Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus. The title alone said everything. It wasn't just about horror. It was about humanity's hunger to create, and the price of doing so without love or responsibility. But what most people don't know is how much Mary Shelley's personal life bled into the story. Before she ever wrote Frankenstein, tragedy had already shaped her like a sculptor's chisel. Mary fell in love with the poet Percy Shelley when she was just 16. He was already married but equally smitten, and the two eloped, scandalizing England's literary circles. They were broke, ostracized, and constantly moving from place to place. Their first child died shortly after birth, and the grief nearly destroyed Mary. Then, just months before she began Frankenstein, Percy's estranged wife, Harriet, drowned herself in London's Serpentine River, pregnant and abandoned. Only 3 weeks later, Mary and Percy married. It's hard not to imagine that the themes of death, guilt, and rebirth in Frankenstein came from her own heartbreak and guilt. In 1822, Percy himself drowned when his boat capsized off the Italian coast. His body was cremated, but in a morbid twist that feels straight out of one of Mary's novels. His heart refused to burn. Captain Edward Trelawney plucked the preserved organ from the fire, and after a tug-of-war worthy of Gothic absurdity, Mary claimed it and kept it wrapped in silk in her desk drawer. Yes, the woman who wrote Frankenstein literally kept her dead husband's heart near her writing hand. Fitting, isn't it? Shelley wasn't just spinning ghost stories, she was engaging with real scientific debates of her time. The 18th and early 19th centuries were full of discoveries that blurred the line between life and death. Galvanism was one, but there were others. Anatomical dissections, body snatching for medical research, and public autopsies. The fascination with the electricity as a life force was everywhere. Scientists believed it might hold the secret to reanimation. Mary, being intellectually curious and surrounded by romantic thinkers, saw the poetic and horrifying implications. If humans could mimic the divine act of creation, what moral boundaries could they cross? Her character, Victor Frankenstein, became a cautionary figure not because he made a monster, but because he abandoned it. Shelley's genius was in flipping the script. The monster was the sympathetic one and the mirror of our own loneliness and longing for connection. This duality, the creator and the created, is what del Toro picks up so beautifully in his version. Guillermo del Toro had dreamed of making Frankenstein for more than 30 years. To him, it was never just about horror, it was about heartbreak. Del Toro first saw the 1931 Frankenstein film when he was 7. By 11, he had devoured Shelley's novel. Over the decades, he created his own pantheon of monsters, gentle, sad, soulful beings like the faun in Pan's Labyrinth or the amphibian man in The Shape of Water. In his eyes, monsters are never villains. They're metaphors for pain, isolation, and misunderstood humanity. In his 2025 adaptation, Del Toro set out to strip away decades of Hollywood caricature, the stiff, square-headed brute, and return to the heart of Shelley's idea. His Frankenstein is both gothic and deeply emotional, a story of creation and abandonment that explores not just science gone wrong, but love gone missing. He describes the film as a conversation between the scientist and the creation, where both are victims of the same yearning, to make meaning in a world that rejects them. Del Toro's obsession with detail shows up in every frame. His team studied real 17th and 18th century anatomical displays like the Evelyn tables, wooden slabs onto which human veins and arteries were preserved in wax. These grotesque yet beautiful artifacts symbolized humanity's centuries-old obsession with mapping life itself. The film's Victor Frankenstein doesn't just stitch bodies together in a lightning-lit lab. He works with surgical precision, reflecting real historical practices of dissection and anatomical study. Del Toro even drew inspiration from early European surgeons like Francesco Vacca Berlinghieri, who conducted experiments on corpses to better understand the body's mechanics. The historical grounding makes the horror more intimate. It's not about the supernatural, but about humanity's arrogance in the face of mortality. In one interview, Del Toro said he didn't want Victor to feel like a mad scientist, but like an artist. That's why Oscar Isaac modeled his portrayal on Prince. Yes, the musician. He studied the way Prince moved during Super Bowl rehearsals, how he claimed the stage with creative authority. For Victor, that same confidence becomes dangerous. The artist so consumed by perfection that he forgets the consequence of his creation. For Del Toro, Frankenstein isn't a story you outgrow, it's one that grows with you. It's one of those books that changes with you. As a kid, I identified with the creature. As a parent, I understood the doctor. That's the power of Shelley's story. It evolves with time, just like its monster. When Del Toro was younger, he saw himself as a misunderstood being yearning for acceptance. Now older and a father, he sees the hubris and heartbreak of the creator who wants to make something perfect and loves it too much or not enough. That's the irony. Del Toro has finally made Frankenstein by doing what Victor never did, listening to his creation. In the end, Mary Shelley's and Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein shared the same soul. Both creators built their monsters from pieces of their own pain, grief, obsession, and the search for meaning. Both questioned what it means to create life and to be responsible for it. Shelley wrote Frankenstein as a haunted young woman surrounded by death, wondering if love could survive loss. Del Toro directs it as a mature artist reflecting on creation itself, on how art, like life, can wound the one who makes it. His film honors Shelley's, not by modernizing her, but by returning to her heart. The idea that the real horror isn't the monster, it's neglect, rejection, and the loneliness of being unloved. Over 200 years later, Frankenstein still asks the same question: what happens when we create something and then turn away from it? Del Toro's answer is as gentle as it is terrifying. Monsters are never born evil. They're made that way when no one sees their soul.